All right, here we go. Question number 9 from our 0314 homework number 2 in MyLab Math. They want us to graph this equation. I would like to point out, first of all, that this equation is not linear. Notice that our x has an exponent. When you have an exponent of 2 and no bigger power, that makes the equation quadratic. So this is going to be graphing a quadratic equation. We're going to use a table of values. So we need an XY table. And let's see, in order to do the least amount of work to get the right answer, we want to start with a number that makes the squared part 0. And so that would mean that we need to start with x is 0. That's our first x to pick. Let's plug that in and see what we get. 0 squared minus 5. Well, 0 squared is 0, and 0 minus 5 is just minus 5. Now, this 0, negative 5, that is going to actually be our vertex because it made the squared part 0. And so since this is like the center of the parabola, a quadratic makes a parabola, this called the vertex would be the center of the U shape. The next thing we want to do is we want to pick an x above 0 and below 0. And you don't have to go far, okay? So above 0, maybe 1, and then below 0, negative 1. Do y'all understand on the number line that if you look at 0 and you go to the left 1 space, you get to negative 1. And if you go to the right 1 space, you get to positive 1. Okay, so these two x's, since they're the same distance from the vertex, these should be symmetric when I plug them in. All right, so let's see what we get. 1 squared minus 5. 1 squared is 1. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. And then I've got to point out that when you plug in a negative number into an equation, it really needs to go in parentheses. So that's going to be negative 1 squared minus 5. Negative 1 squared means negative 1 times negative 1, which actually makes positive 1. Minus 5, notice that is the same, so that's going to be negative 4. And that's what I was talking about symmetry. These are going to be at the same height. And so if we graph that manually before we do it electronically, 0, negative 5, that's going to be my y-intercept. And then if I go to the right 1, I'll be at negative 4. If I go to the left 1, I will also be at negative 4. And can you see that? Look, there's our parabola opening up with a vertex at 0, negative 5, like I mentioned. All right, so now let's see, how do we graph that in MyLab Math? Well, we're going to click to enlarge the graph, and we're going to want to pick the quadratic tool. Remember I said this is a quadratic equation, so you want the quadratic tool. And it says click the graph to plot the first point. Notice it doesn't say plot the vertex, so I guess we could plot any of these points first. But just to play it safe, I am going to plot the vertex first, which is 0, negative 5. There we go. Second point, I'm going to go 1, negative 4. And the third point, negative 1, negative 4. Now, do you see how this graph looks exactly like what I drew? So I feel pretty confident about my work, about my picture. So I'm going to go ahead and check that, and we're done. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put those in the comment section below, or you can text me. And thanks for watching.